The hospital cafeteria buzzed with the low hum of exhausted voices and clattering trays when Sergeant Marin Sterling slid into a corner booth. Alone, the way she always did, 6 months into her rookie year at Cedar Ridge General. She had learned to keep her head down, eat fast, and disappear back into the chaos of the ICU before anyone asked too many questions about the gap in her resume between nursing school and now. Nobody at this hospital knew that gap held to deployments, a silver star she never mentioned, and a version of herself she had buried under scrubs and stethoscopes. She was halfway through a sad turkey sandwich when the doors at the far end of the cafeteria opened and the room seemed to change temperature. A tall man in a tailored dark suit walked in, flanked by 2 uniformed police officers and a Belgian Malinois straining gently against a lead. Whispers rippled through the tables. Someone said the word commander. Someone else said canine unit. And someone whispered that this was Arthur Vance, a decorated Navy SEAL commander turned federal security consultant in town reviewing hospital protocols after a string of threats against medical staff. Every head turned to watch him. Every head except Marin's, who kept her eyes fixed on her sandwich, some old instinct in her telling her to stay small. That instinct failed her the moment the Malinois broke formation. The dog's name was Buster, and he had spent 3 years on the force without ever once ignoring a command. But now he pulled hard against his handler's grip, ears pinned forward, tail suddenly wagging with an intensity that made the officer holding his leash stumble. Buster crossed the cafeteria in a straight line, weaving between chairs, and stopped, directly in front of Marin's booth. He sat. Then he pressed his head into her lap and let out a low, whining sound that silenced the entire room. Buster Heel, the handler called, embarrassed, tugging the leash. The dog didn't move. Commander Arthur Vance walked over slowly, studying the scene with the sharp, unreadable focus of a man who had spent 2 decades reading rooms for danger. He crouched beside the booth, looking at Marin, then at his dog, then back at Marin again, as if solving a puzzle he hadn't expected to find in a hospital cafeteria. "He doesn't do that," Arthur said quietly. "Buster doesn't approach anyone off command. Not civilians, not staff, never." He studied her face a moment longer. Something flickering behind his eyes, some memory trying to surface. "Can I sit with you?" Marin's hands tightened around her tray. Every nurse and doctor in the cafeteria was staring now, phones half raised, the air thick with curiosity. She wanted to say no. She wanted to gather her things and vanish down the corridor like she always did. But Buster was still pressed against her knee, warm and insistent. And something in his eyes held a recognition that made her chest ache with the memory she'd spent 2 years trying to bury. "Free country," she said, keeping her voice flat. Though her pulse was hammering, Arthur sat across from her, and Buster immediately shifted, resting his chin on Marin's boot beneath the table, refusing to leave her side. The commander watched this with growing intensity. "That reaction," he said slowly. "I've seen it exactly once before. Kandahar, 2019. A combat medic pulled 3 of my men out of a collapsed building under fire. Buster's predecessor, Ranger, wouldn't leave her side for 2 days afterward. Refused to eat unless she was in the room." He leaned forward. "Her name was Sterling. Staff Sergeant M. Sterling. Army medic. 75th Ranger Regiment support." The cafeteria had gone completely silent. Nurses who thought they knew Marin Sterling. Quiet, competent, always the first to volunteer for a double shift and the last to talk about herself, stared at her like she was a stranger wearing a familiar face. Marin set down her fork. Her jaw tightened, the old training kicking in, the instinct to deflect, minimize, disappear. "You have the wrong person," she said. But Buster lifted his head and let out a single, sharp bark. The kind of bark trained dogs give when they've confirmed exactly what they suspected. Arthur Vance didn't smile, but something in his posture softened. the wary alertness of a soldier replaced by something closer to disbelief and relief tangled together. "Kandahar," he said again, quieter this time, almost to himself. "You pulled Corporal Diaz out from under a support beam with a collapsed lung and carried him 400 meters under mortar fire. I was 2 buildings over. I heard the call go out. Nobody thought a medic could move that fast carrying that much weight." He paused. "I never got to thank the person who saved my men." The records were sealed. Special Operations Attachment. No name released. To command. Every nurse in that cafeteria now understood they were looking at 2 people whose paths had crossed in a war zone years ago. Reunited by a dog who never forgot a scent, never forgot a debt. Marin's eyes stung and she blinked hard, refusing to let this moment crack open everything she had worked so hard to seal shut. "I left that life behind," she said. Finally, voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want anyone here to know." Arthur Vance looked at her with the quiet respect of one warrior recognizing another and beneath the table. Buster let out a contented sigh, finally at peace, as if some circle in the universe had finally closed. A story like this makes your heart race. Hit subscribe now, because what happens next when the hospital administration learns exactly who their rookie nurse really is will change everything. Word travels fast in a hospital, faster than any siren. And by the next morning, the story of Buster. The canine and the mysterious nurse had reached every department from radiology to the executive offices on the 9th floor. Hospital Administrator Patricia Higgins, a woman known for her rigid adherence to protocol and her cold suspicion of anything she couldn't control, called Marin into her office before her shift even started. "There are rumors," Patricia said, "arms crossed, that you have some kind of classified military background, that you've been misrepresenting your qualifications." Her tone was accusatory, and Marin recognized immediately that this wasn't concern. It was fear. The fear of an administrator who hated surprises and hated even more the idea that a rookie nurse might command more respect in this building than she did. "I've never misrepresented anything," Marin said evenly. "My service record isn't on my nursing application because it isn't required. I served, I came home. I chose nursing because I wanted to keep helping people without a weapon in my hand. We'll need documentation," Patricia said, already reaching for the phone. Already preparing, Marin suspected, to find some pretext for termination before the story made the hospital look reckless for hiring someone with a hidden past. But before Patricia could dial, the door opened without a knock, and Commander Arthur Vance stepped inside, still in uniform, Buster calm and steady at his side. "I think I can help with documentation," Arthur said, setting a sealed folder on Patricia's desk. "Staff Sergeant Marin Sterling, United States Army, 75th Ranger Regiment, Medical Attachment. To combat deployments. Silver Star recipient for actions during the extraction at Kandahar Province 2019, where she saved the lives of 4 soldiers under direct enemy fire, including 2 members of my own team." He paused, letting the weight of it settle. "I requested these records be declassified this morning. The moment I confirmed her identity, I spent 6 years trying to find the medic who saved Corporal Diaz's life. I never imagined I'd find her serving coffee to patients 3 floors above a cafeteria." Patricia's face drained of color as she opened the folder, scanning the citation, the photographs, the signatures of generals she recognized from briefings. The accusatory tone evaporated, replaced by the scrambling politeness of someone realizing they had badly misjudged the room. "This isn't a woman who lied to this hospital," Arthur continued, his voice hardening into something commanding, something that filled the room without needing volume. "This is a woman who chose humility over recognition, who walked away from medals and ceremonies to change bedpans and hold the hands of frightened patients at 3 a.m. If anything, Cedar Ridge General should be thanking whatever luck brought her through your doors." Word of the Scanso ski spread through the hospital, even faster than the cafeteria scene had the day before. By the time Marin finished her shift, nurses she barely knew were stopping her. In hallways, some in tears, thanking her, others simply nodding with a new kind of respect in their eyes. The rookie nobody had bothered to learn much about was suddenly the quiet legend everyone wanted to know. That evening, as Marin packed up to leave, she found Arthur waiting by the hospital entrance. Buster sitting obediently at his feet, tail thumping against the tile floor the moment he saw her. "I wanted to ask you something." "Back in that cafeteria," Arthur said. "Before all this happened, would you consider consulting with our unit? Combat medicine, training trauma response for our canine handlers. We need people who've been in it, not people who've only read about it." Marin knelt down to scratch behind Buster's ears, feeling the familiar warmth of a bond forged in a place far from this quiet parking lot. "I left that world because I wanted peace," she said. "But maybe peace doesn't mean forgetting who I was. Maybe it means using what I learned to help people in a different way." Arthur extended his hand, and she shook it. The handshake of two people who understood sacrifice in a way most others never would. "Welcome back, Sergeant," he said. "Sort of." Buster let out a happy bark, circling them both, and for the first time in 2 years, Marin Sterling didn't feel the need to hide. She had spent so long trying to bury a hero beneath a set of scrubs, not realizing that the two had never been separate at all. The nurse who held a dying man's hand at 3 a.m. and the soldier who carried a wounded brother through gunfire were the same woman, the same heart, the same unshakable courage.